Hello friend, it is so very good to have you here again. Welcome to our quiet corner of the evening. I am so glad that you have found your way back to this space, a space we have built together, just for moments like this. The day is done. Whatever kind of day it has been for you, whatever tasks were finished, and whatever tasks were left undone, it no longer matters. The sun has crossed the sky, the shadows have lengthened, and the rushing of the world out there has finally begun to quiet down. I want you to take a moment to acknowledge that you have arrived. You are here. You are safe. There is nowhere else you need to be, and there is absolutely nothing else you need to do. The demands of the modern world are heavy. We carry them all day long, often without even realizing how much weight we have taken on. The endless barrage of noise, the bright, artificial lights of screens, the constant feeling of needing to be moving, of needing to be productive, of needing to respond to a world that spins far too fast. It is an exhausting way to live. But tonight, right now, we are closing the door on all of that. I want you to imagine that door in your mind, a heavy, solid oak door. I want you to picture yourself reaching out, taking the cool iron handle in your hand, and gently pulling it shut. Hear the soft, reassuring click of the latch falling into place. With that simple sound, you have locked the modern world outside. The noise cannot reach you here. The deadlines cannot reach you here. The endless stream of information has been silenced. Inside this room, there is only peace. There is only the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing, and the sound of my voice keeping you company in the quiet. Now that the world is safely shut away, it is time to settle in. If you have not done so already, please dim the lights around you. Let the room soften. Let the sharp edges of the furniture fade into the shadows. Pull your blankets up a little higher, tucking them gently around your shoulders. Feel the weight of the fabric pressing down on you, a comforting, grounding pressure that tells your body it is time to rest. I want you to bring your attention to your physical self. We hold so much tension in our bodies without realizing it, bracing ourselves against the day. Let us begin to undo that now. Start with your face. Unclench your jaw. Let your teeth part just slightly, and let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Notice how that small release instantly softens the muscles in your cheeks and around your temples. Smooth out the space between your eyebrows. Let the muscles of your forehead relax, as if a warm, soothing hand has just gently stroked away the worry lines. Allow your eyes to gently close. Feel the heavy, velvet darkness settling over your vision. Your eyelids are becoming heavy, so heavy that even if you wanted to open them, it would simply be too much effort. It feels so much better to just let them remain closed, to let them sink downward into rest. Now, draw a slow, deep breath in through your nose. Feel the cool air filling your lungs, expanding your chest, creating space inside of you. Hold it for just a fraction of a second, and then release it in a long, slow sigh. As you let the air go, let your shoulders drop. Feel them melting down away from your ears, sinking deeper into the surface beneath you. The tension in your neck begins to dissolve, flowing away like water draining into the earth. Take another slow, deliberate breath. As you exhale this time, let that feeling of deep, heavy relaxation spread down your arms. Feel it traveling through your biceps, over your elbows, down through your forearms, and all the way out to the very tips of your fingers. Your arms feel completely boneless, heavy and warm, resting entirely supported by the bed beneath you. Breathe in again, a gentle, quiet breath. As you let it out, feel the relaxation moving down through your chest and your back. Feel your spine releasing its grip, every vertebra settling comfortably into a natural, easy alignment. Your stomach softens. The deep core muscles that hold you upright all day are finally allowed to let go completely. And with one more slow breath, send that heavy, warm relaxation down through your legs. Let it wash over your thighs, your knees, your calves and your feet. Every muscle, every tendon, every fibre of your being is now sinking, settling, drifting. You are anchored to the bed, safe and secure, held in a perfect state of physical peace. As your body settles into this profound stillness, we are going to let your mind begin to drift. We are going to leave this modern room behind entirely. We are going to take a journey backward, not just across miles, but across centuries. We are going away to a place where time is not measured by the frantic ticking of a clock or the harsh ringing of an alarm, but by the slow, natural cycles of the earth. We are travelling to a place where the setting of the sun means the true end of the day, a time when the world naturally goes quiet and dark, and the only light comes from the soft, flickering glow of hearth fires and beeswax candles. Imagine the modern room around you beginning to dissolve. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, they all slowly become translucent, fading away like morning mist burning off a lake. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the faint electrical buzz of the modern age, all of these sounds grow fainter and fainter until they are nothing more than a memory, eventually swallowed up completely by a vast, beautiful silence. You are floating, just for a moment, in a comfortable, formless space of quiet. You are drifting backward through the years, back past the roaring engines of the 20th century, back past the whistling trains and sprawling factories of the 19th century, back past the grand, noisy cities of the 18th and 17th centuries. We are drifting all the way back to the quiet, forgotten evenings of the 1500s, a time when the world was vast, when forests were deep and dark, and when human life was entirely tethered to the simple, rhythmic elements of fire, water, earth, and air. The mist begins to clear, and you feel the ground gently rise up to meet your feet. It is a solid, grounding sensation. As your surroundings slowly come into focus, you find yourself standing beneath the vast, open sky of a late 16th century evening. The first thing you notice is the air. It is entirely different from the air of the modern world. It is incredibly crisp, cool, and impossibly clean. Every breath you take feels restorative, filling your lungs with the untainted scent of a world that moves at a glacial pace. The heat of the long day has finally broken, giving way to a gentle, twilight chill that makes you want to pull your cloak a little tighter around your shoulders, a sensation that is more comforting than it is cold. You look up, and the sky above you is a breathtaking canvas of deep, bruised colours. The sun has already dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a fading wash of deep, velvety purple and bruised indigo. At the very edge of the world, just above the distant line of ancient, dark trees, there is a lingering ribbon of burnt orange and pale gold, the very last glowing embers of the daylight, slowly surrendering to the approaching night. The sky is so vast, so uninterrupted by tall buildings or bright city lights, that it feels like a grand, protective dome resting softly over the earth. Already, in the deepest purple patches directly overhead, the first few stars have begun to prick through the darkness, tiny, silver pinpricks of light that have looked down on this exact spot for millennia. You lower your gaze and take in your surroundings. You are standing at the edge of a small, rural European village. This is not a place of grand castles or famous kings. It is a quiet, ordinary place, tucked away in a gentle valley, surrounded by rolling hills and thick, silent woodlands. The village is small, just a scattered collection of sturdy, humble dwellings, built to withstand the slow march of the seasons. Beneath your feet, you feel the texture of the earth. It is a well-worn dirt path, packed down firm and smooth by generations of footsteps, by the slow trudge of weary farmers returning from the fields, and by the heavy, deliberate steps of workhorses. As you begin to walk slowly forward into the village, the dirt path gradually gives way to cobblestones. They are rounded river stones, uneven and mismatched, laid by hand so long ago that the earth has reclaimed the spaces between them. You can feel the soft, damp moss that has grown in the crevices, a quiet testament to the enduring stillness of this place. Every step you take produces a soft, muffled sound, a rhythmic, grounding thud that seems to echo faintly against the stone walls of the nearby houses. The village is settling into its nightly rest. As you walk past the small, tightly clustered homes, you see the thick, thatched roofs sloping low toward the ground, their dried reeds turning a deep, shadowy brown in the fading light. The walls are made of rough-hewn timber and thick, whitewashed plaster, meant to keep the winter winds at bay and hold the warmth of the hearth inside. The windows are small, framed in heavy, dark oak, and fitted with tiny, diamond-shaped panes of thick, imperfect glass. Through these glass panes you can see the soft, golden wavering light of tallow candles and small hearth fires. It is a warm, inviting glow that speaks of families gathered close, of quiet conversations spoken in hushed tones, and of the day's hard labour finally coming to an end. The village is incredibly quiet. The silence here is not empty. It is full and rich, woven with the subtle natural sounds of the evening. You can hear the rhythmic, high-pitched chirping of crickets hidden in the tall grasses at the edge of the path. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls out from the deep woods, a low, haunting, and beautiful sound that carries perfectly on the still night air. A gentle breeze rustles through the leaves of a massive ancient oak tree standing at the centre of the village square, producing a sound like a long, slow exhalation. As you continue your slow walk through the darkening village, your senses are suddenly captivated by a new sensation. It begins faintly at first, riding on the cool currents of the evening breeze. It is a scent so deeply ingrained in human memory, so universally comforting, that it instantly makes your chest feel warm and your shoulders drop even further. It is the smell of wood smoke, earthy and rich, mixed with the deep, intoxicating aroma of toasted grain and blooming yeast. It is the unmistakable scent of freshly baked bread. You stop walking and simply close your eyes for a moment, letting the aroma wash over you. It is a layered, complex scent. There is the dark, slightly bitter smell of the charred hardwood logs that have burned down to ash. There is the dusty, earthy smell of raw flour settling onto stone. And then there is the sweet, heavy, heartwarming fragrance of the bread itself, a smell that speaks of nourishment, of care, and of the ancient, slow alchemy of turning simple earth, water, and fire into life-sustaining food. You open your eyes and let the scent guide you. It pulls you forward like an invisible, gentle tether, leading you down a narrow, curving cobblestone lane, slightly away from the main cluster of houses. The lane is flanked by low stone walls, their rough surfaces cool to the touch and covered in creeping vines that look black in the twilight. At the end of the lane, standing solitary and sturdy, is the source of the wonderful aroma. It is the village bakery. The building is different from the timber-framed houses you passed earlier. It is built entirely of large, heavy, grey fieldstones, meticulously stacked and mortared together to create walls that are thick enough to withstand the immense, continuous heat of the great ovens within. The structure looks ancient, permanent, as if it naturally grew out of the earth itself. Its roof is pitched high, covered in overlapping clay tiles that have weathered to a soft mottled red and grey. A wide, squat stone chimney rises from the centre of the roof, exhaling a thin, lazy ribbon of pale grey smoke into the darkening indigo sky. You approach the building slowly, your footsteps softening as you draw near. As you step within a few feet of the stone walls, you can actually feel the building radiating heat. The great ovens inside have been burning since long before the sun came up, baking hundreds of heavy, crusty loaves to feed the village. Now, even though the sun has set and the cool night air has descended, The massive stone walls of the bakery have absorbed all that glorious warmth. They are releasing it slowly, steadily, back into the cool evening air. It feels like standing next to a gentle, giant sleeping creature that is radiating a comforting, steady warmth. You walk toward the front of the bakery. There is a heavy, thick oak door, its wood darkened by decades of flour dust, wood smoke, and the oil of countless hands pushing it open. Beside the door is a single, relatively large window divided into small, leaded glass panes. The glass is thick and slightly distorted, filled with tiny bubbles and ripples that catch the light from inside. You step closer to the window, the warmth of the stones pressing against your side, the rich, heavy smell of toasted flour, and wood smoke wrapping around you like a thick woolen blanket. The world outside is dark, quiet and cool, but as you look through the rippled glass, you are about to step into a space of unparalleled warmth, a sanctuary of slow, deliberate routine, where the fires of the day are gently being put to rest. The modern world is completely gone now. You are perfectly safe, standing in the quiet embrace of the 16th century, ready to watch the last embers of the day slowly fade into the night. You reach out toward the heavy, ancient oak door of the bakery. The iron of the thumb latch is cool against your skin, a grounding, solid piece of metal, forged by hand in a time when things were built to last for centuries. You press your thumb down upon the flat, smoothed iron of the latch. It yields with a heavy, satisfying mechanical clack, a sound that speaks of weight and security. As you gently push forward, the great door swings inward upon its massive, hand-wrought iron hinges. It moves slowly, offering a gentle, reassuring resistance, accompanied by the deep, resonant groan of old wood adjusting its weight. As the door opens, you do not just step into a room, you step into a physical embrace. The contrast between the cool, crisp, twilight air of the village and the atmosphere inside the bakery is immediate and profound. A wave of heavy, deeply comforting heat washes over you. It is not the sharp, stifling heat of a harsh summer afternoon, but a mellow, radiant, and profoundly soothing warmth. It feels like slipping into a warm bath, or wrapping a thick, sun-baked woolen blanket around your shoulders. This heat has depth. It has been building within these stone walls since long before the dawn, baked into the very foundation of the building, and now it wraps around you, instantly loosening any remaining tension in your neck, your shoulders, and your chest. You step softly over the worn wooden threshold, your foot coming to rest on the solid floor within. You turn back and pull the heavy oak door shut. It closes with a deep, muffled thud, the heavy iron latch falling perfectly back into its cradle. With that simple closing of the door, the outside world is entirely severed from you. The cool night, the vast sky, the whispering breeze, and the distant calls of the evening birds are instantly erased. You are sealed within the absolute, impregnable safety of this ancient stone sanctuary. The silence in this room is not empty. It is a thick, blanketed quiet. The walls of this bakery are built from massive fieldstones, stacked 2 feet thick, effectively turning the interior into a perfect, quiet harbour. They absorb every vibration, every echo, leaving only the softest, most intimate sounds of the room itself. You can hear the steady, rhythmic sound of your own slow breathing. You can hear the faint, dry rustle of your own clothes as you shift your weight. And, beneath it all, you can hear the deep, low, almost imperceptible breathing of the great hearth. Before you even move to look around, you close your eyes again, just for a moment, to take in the scent of this place. If the smell of the bakery from the outside was inviting, the aroma inside the room is nothing short of intoxicating. It is a dense, layered tapestry of scent, woven into the very fabric of the building over countless generations. The air is dry, carrying the earthy, powdery scent of raw flour, wheat, rye, and barley. That has settled into the cracks of the floor, and the grain of the wooden tables over decades. Beneath the raw flour is the rich, complex aroma of the baking itself. It smells of toasted bran, of deeply caramelized crusts, of sugar that has caught the edge of a hot brick, and of the sweet, heady perfume of active, blooming yeast. Woven through all of these smells is the ancient, nostalgic scent of wood smoke, not acrid or sharp, but mellow and sweet, the ghost of 1,000 oak and ash fires that have burned within this room. It is a smell that instantly makes you feel anchored, deeply rooted in the simple, essential history of human nourishment. You open your eyes and let them adjust to the beautiful, shifting light of the room. There are no candles lit yet, and no lanterns burning. The only source of illumination comes from the massive stone hearth that dominates the far wall of the bakery. The light it casts is not steady. It is a living, breathing thing. It is a deep, rich, amber glow, the colour of old honey or dark, aged cider. This warm light fills the lower half of the room, while the upper corners and the high ceiling remain draped in a heavy, comforting velvet shadow. The light behaves like slow-moving water, gently washing over the surfaces of the room. It catches the edges of the rough stone walls, highlighting the uneven, hand-spread plaster that covers them. The walls are whitewashed, but years of radiant heat and wood smoke have softened the bright white to a deep, buttery cream colour, stained with faint, beautiful sepia shadows in the corners. As the embers in the hearth subtly shift and breathe, the shadows on the walls sway and dance in a glacial, hypnotic rhythm. It is a slow, mesmerizing waltz of light and dark that invites your eyes to rest, to stop darting around, and to simply follow the slow, easy movement of the shadows. You look down at your feet. The floor beneath you is a masterpiece of slow, deliberate history. It is made of massive, irregular flagstones, quarried from the surrounding hills and laid out in a beautifully chaotic puzzle. Some stones are pale, slate grey, while others carry deep tones of river blue and rusted iron red. Over the centuries, the leather-soled shoes of countless bakers walking the same paths. From the table to the oven, from the oven to the cooling racks, have worn the stones impossibly smooth. The edges of the stones are rounded, and the centre of the room has a slight, almost imperceptible dip, a physical record of human labour set in solid rock. Between the heavy stones, the mortar lines run deep, and they are filled with the pale, fine white dust of flour, creating a delicate, intricate map of pale lines crisscrossing the dark stone floor. You slowly lift your gaze from the floor, letting your eyes travel up the thick, plastered walls, past the dancing amber shadows until you reach the ceiling. The ceiling is low, designed to keep the precious heat trapped down near the floor where the work is done. It is supported by massive, hand-hewn oak timbers that run the entire length of the room. These beams were cut from the deep, dark forests centuries ago. They are incredibly thick, easily the width of a man's torso, and they still bear the uneven, rhythmic scars of the broad axe that shaped them. Time and wood smoke have cured these timbers, turning the oak to a colour that is almost entirely black, rich and dark as a starless night. They look like the ribs of a great, ancient ship, turned upside down and resting firmly on the stone walls, holding the entire weight of the roof with effortless, eternal strength. Hanging from small, hand-forged iron nails, driven into the sides of these beams, are dried bundles of herbs, rosemary, thyme, and wild sage, their pale, brittle leaves catching the faint amber light, adding their own subtle, dry, medicinal scent to the rich air of the bakery. To your left, running along the length of the wall, is the great work table. It is an immense piece of furniture, a single, incredibly thick slab of solid beechwood resting upon heavy trestle legs. This table is the altar of the bakery. Its surface is a landscape of slow, daily wear. It is not smooth or polished, it is deeply textured. There are long, shallow grooves where knives have scraped, perfectly smooth hollows where thousands of mounds of dough have been kneaded by heavy, rhythmic hands, and dark, oiled patches where butter and fat have sunk deep into the grain of the wood. Right now, the table is resting. It is covered in a very fine, almost invisible dusting of pale flour, catching the hearth light so that the entire surface of the wood seems to have a soft, matte glow. Neatly arranged at the far end of the table are the simple tools of the trade: a heavy, iron-handled dough scraper, a wooden scoop, its edges worn soft and round, a small bristled brush. They sit in perfect stillness, their daily work completed, waiting patiently for the dawn. But your attention, like everything else in this room, is inevitably drawn back to the source of the heat, the source of the light, the beating heart of the bakery, the great stone hearth. You walk toward it, your footsteps completely silenced by the heavy flagstones. With every slow step you take, the ambient temperature rises just slightly, wrapping around you in a thicker, heavier layer of comfort. You come to a stop just a few feet away from the edge of the hearth, standing in the center of its radiant amber glow. The hearth is monumental. It is an enormous archway built of dark, fire-baked bricks, set deep into the thick stone wall of the building. The opening is so large that a person could easily crawl inside, and the brickwork framing it is stained deep black with the soot of a million fires. This is not a delicate parlor fireplace. This is an engine of incredible, sustained heat. Behind the archway stretches the deep, dark cavern of the oven itself, a long, low-domed tunnel of fire brick designed to swallow the flames of the morning, absorb their intense energy, and hold on to it throughout the entire day. Right now, the great, roaring, crackling fires of the early morning are long gone. The heavy logs of oak and ash that were fed into the oven before dawn have burned completely through their violent, consuming life cycle. What remains now, resting on the flat brick floor of the oven, is the quiet, enduring soul of the fire. It is a massive, sprawling bed of embers. You stand in the absolute quiet of the bakery, watching them. The embers are a landscape of profound, mesmerizing beauty. They are not simply red. They contain 1,000 different shades of heat. In the deepest crevices, where the wood has broken down into concentrated, dense nuggets of pure energy, the color is a searing, vibrant cherry red, so bright it almost looks liquid. Around these intense peaks, the color softens into deep, bruised oranges, the shade of a late autumn sunset. Covering this entire glowing landscape is a soft, delicate blanket of pale grey and blinding white ash. The ash acts as a natural insulator, trapping the immense heat within the coals, protecting them from the cooler air of the room, ensuring they will survive the long, dark night. The texture of the ash is incredibly fine, like powdered snow resting over a mountain range of fire. But the most hypnotic thing about the embers is that they are constantly moving. As the faint, invisible currents of air in the bakery slowly circulate, gently washing over the open hearth, the embers respond. When a breath of air touches them, the layer of grey ash seems to pull back just a fraction of an inch, and the cherry red light beneath flares up, glowing brighter, illuminating the inside of the brick oven with a sudden wash of amber light. Then, as the air stills, the ash settles back down, and the light slowly, gracefully dims back to a deep smouldering orange. It is exactly like watching a living creature breathe, a slow, rhythmic inhalation of air, a swelling of deep red light, a long, gentle exhalation, a fading back into the protective grey ash, swelling, fading, brightening, dimming. You find your own breathing naturally slowing down to match the rhythm of the embers. You inhale as they brighten. You exhale slowly as they dim. The rise and fall of your chest aligns completely with the slow, pulsing heartbeat of the hearth. You stand there for a very long time, entirely captivated by the tiny shifting landscapes within the coals. You watch a small piece of charred wood, still clinging to its shape, suddenly crack perfectly in half, with a tiny, musical pop, settling deeper into the ash and sending up a single, microscopic spark that floats lazily up the dark chimney before winking out of existence. The heat radiating from the oven presses gently against your face, your chest, and your arms. It is a heavy, therapeutic warmth that sinks past your skin, deep into your muscles, melting away the very last, stubborn remnants of tension you carried in from the outside world. Your jaw is entirely slack. Your shoulders are heavy and low. Your legs feel firmly rooted to the smooth flagstone floor, yet your body feels incredibly light, floating in the thick, warm, fragrant air of the room. The bakery is absolutely still. It is a space dedicated entirely to endurance, to the slow, quiet routines that sustain life. There is no urgency here. The bread has been baked. The villagers have been fed. The day's labour is etched into the wooden table and the stone floor, but the labour itself is finished. The bakery is simply resting, basking in its own stored warmth, waiting out the dark hours of the night with the quiet, confident patience of the embers. You remain standing in the amber light, wrapped in the profound silence of the thick stone walls, breathing in the scent of toasted flour and wood tar. You are entirely safe in this forgotten pocket of time. The modern world, with all its noise, its bright lights, and its endless demands, cannot find you here. There is only the soft, rhythmic breathing of the red coals, the heavy, comforting heat, and the beautiful, unending peace of the slow evening. As you stand there in the profound stillness, enveloped by the deep amber glow of the dying hearth, you gradually become aware of a presence in the room with you. It is not a sudden arrival, nor is it startling in any way. Rather, it is as if the shadows in the far corner of the bakery simply shifted, slowly giving form to someone who has been there all along. It is the master baker, emerging quietly from the small, darkened doorway that leads to his modest living quarters at the back of the building. He moves into the faint, warm light of the room with a slowness and a grace that can only be earned through a lifetime of repetitive, deliberate labour. He does not shatter the peace of the room. He is an intrinsic part of it. His presence is as natural and comforting as the heavy oak beams above or the worn stone floor beneath your feet. He is an older man, his figure softened and settled by the years. He wears a simple, homespun tunic of undyed wool, the fabric thick and soft, falling loosely over his shoulders. Tied around his waist is a long, heavy linen apron that was perhaps once white, but is now permanently mapped with the faded, pale shadows of countless days spent working with flour and dough. The apron is a testament to his trade, dusted with a fine, powdery layer of white that catches the ambient light, making him seem almost as if he is glowing very faintly in the dimness. His face is deeply lined, weathered not by the harsh sun or the biting wind, but by the intense radiant heat of the great brick oven. His expression is one of absolute, unshakable calm. There is no rush in his eyes, no lingering tension in his jaw. He looks at the room with the deep, quiet affection of a man who knows every inch of this space perfectly, a man whose entire life is measured by the rising of the dough and the cooling of the embers. He moves toward the center of the room, his footsteps completely silent in his soft, leather-soled shoes. He is ready to begin the final, meditative rituals of the evening. These are not chores to be hurried through so that he might rest. These simple actions are the very beginning of his rest. It is the quiet process of putting the room to sleep, of honouring the space that has provided for the village all day. You watch him from your quiet corner, feeling a deep sense of privilege to simply observe this private, unspoken ceremony. Your own breathing begins to naturally synchronize with the slow, steady rhythm of his movements. He walks over to the far wall, where a simple, handmade broom leans quietly against the rough plaster. He reaches out and wraps a large, strong hand around the handle. The handle is made of a sturdy branch of ash wood, stripped of its bark many years ago. It has been polished to an incredible, buttery smoothness by the natural oils of his hands, worn perfectly into the shape of his grip. The bristles are made of dried, stiff grass, gathered from the late summer fields and bound tightly to the handle with thick, coarse hemp twine. He lifts the broom with an effortless motion, feeling its familiar weight, and steps toward the center of the uneven flagstone floor. He begins to sweep. He does not use short, frantic strokes. Instead, he uses long, slow, sweeping arcs, moving from the right side of his body all the way across to his left, guiding the broom with a fluid, pendulum-like motion. As the dried grass bristles drag gently across the rough, pitted surface of the heavy floor stones, they produce a sound that is instantly, profoundly hypnotic. It is a soft, rhythmic friction. Shh! A long, drawn-out whisper of straw against stone. Shh! Then a slow, deliberate pause as he steps forward, shifting his weight with the natural sway of his body. And then again. Shh! The sound fills the quiet air of the bakery, weaving itself into the silence like a thick, comforting thread. It is a lullaby of simple labour. With every stroke of the broom, you feel your own shoulders drop just a fraction of an inch lower. The rhythmic repetition is a signal to your mind that there are no surprises here, no sudden changes, only the beautiful, predictable monotony of a task being done exactly as it has been done 1,000 times before. You let your eyes softly follow the motion of the broom, watching as the stiff bristles gather up the stray dustings of white flour that have settled over the dark stones throughout the long day of baking. As the bristles move, they agitate the air just enough to lift tiny, microscopic motes of flour and fine grey ash into the warm space above the floor. These tiny particles catch the deep amber light radiating from the hearth, illuminating the air itself. The room seems to be filled with a slow-moving, golden mist, swirling gently around the baker's ankles. As he works his way across the room, he sweeps the fine white dust out of the deep mortar lines between the heavy stones, guiding it carefully over the rounded, polished edges of the slate, slowly accumulating a soft, pale mound of flour and ash near the center of the floor. He works with a quiet, total focus, entirely present in the simple act of cleaning the stone, respecting the floor that supports him. When he has gathered all the stray dust into a neat, small pile, he uses a flat piece of thin wood to gently scoop it up, tossing it casually into the far, darkened corner of the deep hearth, where it instantly vanishes into the heat, leaving the flagstones entirely clean and bare. He returns the broom to its resting place against the wall, setting it down so gently that it makes almost no sound at all. His next task takes him toward the massive oak work table. Leaning against the wall beside the table are the baker's peels. These are the tools of his trade, the long, flat wooden paddles, used to carry the heavy, unbaked loaves deep into the cavernous heat of the brick oven, and to retrieve them when their crusts are dark and hollow sounding. There are 3 of them, varying in length, their long handles reaching almost to the low, beamed ceiling. The wood of the paddles is pale, but the edges are deeply scorched and blackened, permanently branded by the intense heat they endure every single morning. The baker reaches for the longest of the peels. He runs his hand slowly down the length of the handle, his rough palm sliding over the perfectly smooth, pale wood. He lifts it away from the wall, testing its balance in his grip. There is a deep, quiet intimacy between the craftsman and his tools. He taps the wide, flat end of the paddle gently against the toe of his leather shoe to dislodge a thin film of pale flour that had settled on the wood. He then turns and carries the long peel toward a specific corner of the room, a narrow alcove built specifically for this purpose. He lowers the heavy wooden paddle, guiding the flat end down to the stone floor. When the wood makes contact with the flagstone, it produces a deep, muffled, hollow sound. Thump. It is a rich, resonant sound that echoes very faintly against the thick walls and the high oak beams. A sound that speaks of heavy timber and solid earth. He lets the long handle lean back until it rests perfectly against the corner of the wall. He returns for the second peal, carrying it with the same slow, deliberate care, and sets it down beside the first. Thump. The sound vibrates softly in your chest, a low grounding note that anchors you even deeper into the safety of the room. He retrieves the final, shortest peal, the one used for the smallest loaves and the delicate morning pastries. He carries it over and sets it down with a final satisfying sound. Thump. The tools are now perfectly aligned, stacked neatly in the deep shadows of the corner, their daily work completely finished, resting in the quiet dark until the next sunrise. With the floor swept and the tools put away, the baker turns his attention to the great oak work table. This massive slab of wood is the altar upon which the life of the village is sustained, the place where simple water, flour, and yeast are worked by hand into something beautiful and essential. Right now, the deep, rich brown colour of the beechwood is entirely obscured by a fine, dry layer of white flour left over from the day's shaping and kneading. The baker walks slowly to a low wooden bench, sitting just beneath the small, rippled glass window. Resting on the bench is a heavy wooden bucket, bound by dark iron hoops. The bucket is filled with clean, cool water drawn from the village well, just before sunset. He reaches into the deep pocket of his apron and pulls out a square of thick, coarse, unbleached linen cloth. He leans over the bucket and slowly lowers the cloth into the water. In the absolute quiet of the bakery, the sound of the cloth breaking the surface of the water is incredibly clear. It is a soft, wet, natural sound. You can hear the dry fibres of the linen eagerly drinking in the moisture, the tiny bubbles of trapped air escaping and popping gently on the surface. He leaves the cloth submerged for a moment, letting it become completely saturated, heavy and cold. Then he reaches his large hands into the bucket and gathers the wet fabric. He lifts it out, and the excess water immediately begins to fall back down. A delicate, musical trickling sound as the heavy droplets splash back into the deep bucket. He grips the ends of the cloth and twists his hands in opposite directions, wringing the water out of the linen. The fabric groans softly under the tension, a tight, fibrous squeak as a thick stream of water pours down from his hands, striking the surface of the water in the bucket with a steady, rhythmic splashing. He wrings it until it is no longer dripping, but remains deeply, heavily damp. As he lifts the damp cloth, a new scent is introduced to the warm, dry air of the bakery. It is the incredibly clean, earthy smell of wet linen mingling with the crisp, mineral scent of the cold well water. It is a refreshing, pure aroma that cuts beautifully through the heavy, toasted scents of the room. He walks over to the far end of the massive oak table and lays the damp cloth flat against the flour-dusted wood. He places both of his hands flat on top of the cloth, his fingers spread wide, and begins to push it slowly across the surface of the table. He moves in wide, overlapping circles. As the damp linen slides over the dry wood, it completely erases the pale layer of flour, capturing it within the rough fibres of the cloth, and, as the white dust is wiped away, the true, magnificent character of the wood is revealed in its wake. The moisture from the cloth brings out the deep, rich, dark brown hues of the beechwood, highlighting the tight, ancient grain that runs in beautiful, swirling patterns down the length of the table. The sound of the wiping is incredibly soothing. It is a soft, wet friction, a slow, continuous sigh as the cloth drags across the grooves and hollows of the heavy slab. He pushes the cloth forward, sweeping a large arc away from his body, and then pulls it slowly back toward himself. Push and pull, circle after circle. He does not rush. He leans his weight into the motion, letting his shoulders do the work, moving with a steady, hypnotic rhythm that lulls your mind into a state of absolute, drifting peace. You watch the beautiful transformation of the table. Where the cloth has passed, the wood gleams with a dark, damp sheen. But the bakery is so warm, and the heat radiating from the hearth is so pervasive, that the moisture does not last long. Almost as soon as the damp cloth moves on, the thin layer of water left behind on the wood begins to evaporate. You can literally watch the dark, shining surface of the wood slowly turn matte again as it dries, returning to a soft, clean, flourless finish. It is a mesmerizing, slow-motion process. The wet wood drying in the radiant heat, inch by inch, until the entire massive table is perfectly clean, its deep grooves and worn hollows empty and resting. The baker reaches the end of the table. He lifts the cloth, folds it neatly into a small square, and sets it down on the corner of the wooden bench to dry overnight. He stands perfectly still for a long moment, looking over his bakery. The floor is clean. The tools are stacked. The great table is wiped and empty. Everything is exactly where it belongs. There is a profound sense of order, a deep, settling comfort in knowing that the space has been cared for and prepared for the peace of the night. There is only one task left. It is the most important task of all. The baker turns and walks slowly toward the great stone hearth. The deep bed of embers is still glowing with a rich, cherry-red intensity, radiating its heavy, comforting warmth into the room. If left as they are, spread out across the wide, flat floor of the fire-brick oven, the embers would eventually consume themselves, burning through their remaining energy and dying out completely before the morning sun could rise, leaving the great oven cold and lifeless. The baker must ensure that the heart of the fire survives the long, dark hours. He must put the fire to sleep. He reaches out to the side of the stone archway and takes hold of a long, heavy iron poker. It is a crude, brutal-looking tool, forged by the village blacksmith generations ago. The handle is thick and twisted, designed for a firm grip, while the long shaft ends in a flattened, slightly curved iron blade, blackened and scarred by a lifetime of intense heat. The tool is incredibly heavy, but the baker lifts it with the practiced ease of long familiarity. He steps up to the very edge of the open hearth. The heat here is immense, a solid wall of thermal energy pressing against him, but he does not flinch. He is entirely comfortable in this intense warmth. He reaches the long iron poker deep into the cavernous space of the oven, extending it all the way to the far back wall, past the glowing landscape of red coals and grey ash. Slowly, carefully, he lowers the heavy iron blade until it rests against the flat brick floor. Then he begins to pull it toward himself. The sound of the thick iron dragging across the baked fire brick is a deep, resonant scrape. It is a harsh, ancient sound, but in the thick, quiet air of the bakery, it is entirely comforting. It is the sound of heavy things being moved with purpose. As the iron blade pulls forward, it gathers the scattered, glowing embers, pushing them along the floor. When the iron touches the brittle, superheated coals, it produces a sound that is entirely unique. It is a soft, delicate, metallic clinking. Clink, crackle, clink. It sounds like thousands of tiny, fragile glass beads, gently shifting and tumbling over one another. As the embers are disturbed, they suddenly flare up, glowing with a bright, intense, almost blinding orange light, illuminating the deep wrinkles on the baker's focused face. Sparks dance upward, swirling in the hot currents of air, tiny fireflies of light that vanish into the dark soot of the ceiling. The baker works with incredible patience. He uses the iron tool to gently corral the glowing coals, pushing them from the edges of the oven toward the very center. He sweeps the left side, bringing a pile of radiant red heat into the middle. He sweeps the right side, adding to the growing mound. He pulls from the back, piling the embers higher and higher. He is gathering all of the remaining energy, bringing it all tightly together so that the coals can share their heat, insulating each other from the cooler air of the room. The clinking of the brittle coals continues, a gentle, musical rhythm of settling fire. He shapes the mound carefully, using the flat side of the iron blade to pat the sides of the pile, packing the glowing embers into a tight, dense, singular hill of pure, concentrated heat. It looks like a miniature volcano resting in the center of the dark oven, pulsing with a deep, furious red light. But he is not finished. If he leaves the mound exposed, the air will eventually steal its heat. He must blanket the fire. He reaches the iron tool to the very edges of the oven floor, where the fine, powdery grey ash has accumulated over the day. This ash is incredibly light, almost completely weightless, the final, ghostly remnant of the consumed oak logs. He uses the side of the poker to scoop up a wide, shallow pile of the fine ash, and slowly, deliberately, he drags it up and over the glowing mound of red coals. The transformation is immediate and mesmerizing. As the soft grey blanket of ash falls over the cherry red embers, the bright, harsh light of the coals is instantly muffled. He repeats the motion, scooping more ash from the edges and dragging it over the center, burying the glowing mound deeper and deeper. With every pull of the iron, the light in the bakery dims. The sharp, vibrant oranges and reds are slowly smothered, replaced by a soft, muted, incredibly gentle amber glow that bleeds faintly through the thick layer of grey powder. He works until the mound of coals is completely covered. To an outside observer, it might look as though the fire has been entirely extinguished, leaving only a dull, grey hill of dust in the center of the oven. But the baker knows the truth. He knows that beneath that soft, protective blanket of ash, the heart of the fire is still beating. It is safe. It is insulated. It will hold its intense, quiet heat through the deepest, coldest hours of the night, waiting patiently for him to return at dawn, to blow gently away the ash and feed it new wood, waking it once again to feed the village. He pulls the heavy iron poker out of the oven. The metal tip is glowing faintly red from its time in the coals, radiating its own small wave of heat. He sets it gently back into its resting place beside the stone archway. The baker takes a slow, deep breath, and you find yourself taking one with him. The heavy, warm air fills your lungs, scented deeply with the smell of the dry ash, the clean, wet linen, and the faint, sweet memory of the baked bread. As he exhales, his shoulders drop completely. The work is truly finished. The bakery is now draped in a deep, beautiful, heavy shadow. The vibrant, dancing light of the open embers is gone, replaced by a soft, steady, ambient warmth that seems to emanate from the very stones themselves. The air is perfectly still. The silence is absolute, unbroken by the sweep of a broom or the scrape of iron. The room is a sanctuary of profound, undisturbed rest. The modern world is millions of miles away, lost in a distant, noisy future. Here, in this quiet, forgotten space, there is nothing left to do but surrender to the heavy, comforting blanket of the slow evening, letting your mind drift in the gentle, fading warmth of the banked fire. Even though the bright, dancing flames have been gently put to rest beneath their heavy, soft blanket of pale grey ash, the presence of the fire still entirely dominates the room. It is no longer a visual presence, no longer the sharp, shifting shadows and the bright cherry red glare that demands your attention. Instead, it has become a purely physical sensation, a deep, pervasive, and incredibly heavy warmth that has soaked into every single surface, every wooden beam, and every thick, ancient stone. The air in the bakery is perfectly still, rich with the lingering, nostalgic scent of caramelized crusts, toasted grain, and the sweet, dark memory of wood smoke. It is a thick, fragrant atmosphere that feels almost like a liquid, a warm, golden sea that you are slowly drifting through. The master baker stands in the center of the flagstone floor, bathed in the soft, muted ambient glow that bleeds faintly through the banked ash. He is entirely motionless. He does not rush to leave the room. He does not hurry away to find his bed. In this quiet, forgotten century, the transition from the labour of the day to the rest of the night is not a sudden, sharp dividing line. It is a slow, gradual fading, a gentle, downward slope that must be walked with patience. He allows his body the time it needs to recognise that the work is finally done. He lets the deep, heavy silence of the room wash over him, washing away the intense focus of the morning, washing away the endless, rhythmic lifting and kneading of the afternoon. Slowly, deliberately, he turns his body away from the massive, flour-dusted work table and turns toward a small, darkened alcove near the edge of the great stone hearth. Resting there, half hidden in the deep velvety shadows, is a simple, humble piece of furniture. It is a low wooden stool. The stool is a masterpiece of unpretentious, necessary design, crafted by the village carpenter many decades ago, specifically for this exact spot. It has only 3 legs, a clever, practical choice, because a 4-legged chair would constantly rock and wobble upon the beautifully uneven, natural surface of the quarried flagstone floor. But 3 legs will always find perfect, unshakable stability, no matter where they are placed. The legs are thick and sturdy, carved from a dense, heavy branch of local ash wood, driven deep into the thick, circular seat and secured with wooden pegs that have swollen and locked tight over the years. There are no iron nails to rust, no glue to dry and crack. It is held together by pure tension and the natural strength of the wood. The seat itself is made from a solid slab of elm, a wood known for its resistance to splitting under heavy weight. Over the countless evenings of the baker's life, the rough wool of his trousers and the heavy linen of his aprons have polished the surface of the elm seat to an incredible, buttery smoothness. It is deeply hollowed out in the centre, perfectly contoured to receive him, a physical mould of his resting posture worn into the solid timber over thousands of quiet nights. The baker takes a slow, heavy step toward the stool. The soft, flexible leather sole of his shoe makes a dull, muted scuff against the stone floor. He takes another step, his shoulders dropping lower with every inch he moves. When he reaches the stool, he turns slowly around, his back to the cooling, darkened room, his face turned toward the gentle ambient warmth radiating from the brick oven. He reaches down behind himself with one large, flour-dusted hand, feeling for the familiar, smoothed edge of the elm seat. His thick, calloused fingers trace the grain of the wood, confirming its presence in the dim light. And then, with a long, slow, involuntary sigh that seems to come from the very depths of his chest, he allows his knees to bend. He lowers his heavy frame down onto the stool. As his weight settles onto the wood, the ancient joints of the stool emit a tiny, beautiful, high-pitched creak, a soft groan of timber accepting its daily burden. It is a sound of pure relief. As soon as he is seated, you can visibly see the remaining tension drain entirely out of his body. The deep, stabilizing muscles of his lower back, which have held him upright through 14 hours of continuous, physical labor, finally let go. He leans slightly forward, resting his heavy forearms upon his thighs, letting his hands dangle loosely in the space between his knees. His hands are thick and strong, the knuckles permanently swollen from a lifetime of kneading dense, heavy dough. The deep lifelines etched into his palms are dusted with fine white flour, creating a beautiful, intricate map of his trade. Now, those hands are perfectly still. The fingers curl inward slightly, completely relaxed, no longer gripping a peel or a knife or a broom. He closes his eyes, allowing the heavy velvet curtain of his eyelids to shut out the dim light of the bakery. He simply sits there, breathing. His breathing is a slow, rhythmic, mesmerizing sound. It is deep and unobstructed, pulling the warm, fragrant air of the room all the way down into the bottom of his lungs. You can hear the faint, dry rustle of the air passing through his nose, and the slow, heavy expansion of his chest beneath the thick homespun wool of his tunic. He holds the breath for a long, quiet moment, letting his body absorb the oxygen, letting the heat of the room sink past his skin. And then he releases it. The exhalation is long, slow, and completely unguarded. It is a sigh that carries away the fatigue of the day, dissolving it into the quiet air. As you watch him, as you listen to the steady, hypnotic rhythm of his breath, you find that your own body is naturally, effortlessly sinking to his pace. You feel your own chest rise as his rises. You feel the cool air enter your nose, expanding your lungs, creating a profound sense of spaciousness within you. And as he exhales, you exhale. You feel the heavy, warm relaxation sinking deeper into your own muscles, your own shoulders dropping perfectly in time with his. You are sharing in this profound, historical rest, anchored to the slow, steady heartbeat of this quiet room. As the baker sits in perfect stillness, and as you stand quietly watching him, you begin to notice that the absolute silence of the bakery is not empty at all. When you strip away the loud, frantic noises of the modern world, the engines, the sirens, the hum of electricity, your ears become incredibly sensitive to the beautiful, microscopic sounds of the earth itself. The room is speaking to you, whispering in a language of slowly changing temperatures and ancient materials. The great brick oven, which absorbed an unfathomable amount of intense thermal energy throughout the morning, is now beginning the long, slow process of cooling down. As the immense heat gradually dissipates into the thick stone walls and the heavy air of the room, the materials themselves begin to physically contract. Deep within the cavernous throat of the oven, a single fire brick shrinks by a fraction of a millimeter. The movement causes it to rub against its neighbour, producing a soft, dull, muffled pop. It is a deep baritone sound that echoes faintly within the brick dome, like a pebble dropping into a deep, dry well. A moment later, from the far side of the hearth, the thick, heavy iron hinges of the oven door, which had expanded in the searing heat of the day, begin to tighten as they cool. The metal produces a tiny, sharp, delicate tink. It sounds like the gentle tapping of a silver spoon against a thick glass cup. Pop, a long pause, filled only by the slow, deep breathing of the baker. Tink, another pause, then a soft, dry crackle as a brittle ember, buried deep beneath the grey ash, suddenly collapses under its own weight, settling deeper into the protective mound. These sounds are entirely irregular, entirely unpredictable, yet they are incredibly soothing. They are the natural, harmless, entirely safe sounds of a structure settling into its rest. It is a lullaby of physics, a quiet, acoustic testament to the monumental energy that has been spent and the profound peace that has now been earned. You let your mind float on these tiny sounds, riding the gentle waves of the tink and the pop, finding immense comfort in the knowledge that nothing in this room demands your attention. You are simply a witness to the slow, beautiful cooling of the earth. From his low seat on the three-legged stool, the baker opens his eyes very slowly. He does not lift his head, but allows his gaze to drift across the dim room, past the perfectly clean, swept flagstones, past the dark, heavy legs of the great oak table, until his eyes settle upon the single window on the far wall. The window is small, framed in thick, dark, heavy timber. The glass itself is a marvel of 16th century craftsmanship, made up of dozens of small, diamond-shaped panes held together by a lattice of thick grey lead caming. The glass is not the perfectly clear, invisible glass of the modern world. It is thick, uneven, and deeply textured. It contains gentle ripples, like the surface of a pond touched by a light breeze, and it is filled with tiny, trapped bubbles of air, frozen forever in the cooling sand. Near the centre of the window is a single, thick bullseye pane, the spinning point where the glassblower finished his work, leaving a heavy, swirling knot of glass that beautifully distorts everything seen through it. Right now, there is nothing to see through the glass. The world outside the bakery has gone completely, absolutely black. It is difficult for the modern mind to truly comprehend the profound, enveloping darkness of the 16th century night. In our time, we have banished the true night. Our skies are always glowing with the ambient, orange haze of streetlights. Our roads are illuminated by sweeping headlights. Our homes are beacons of bright, artificial daylight, burning long after the sun has gone down. We are never truly in the dark. But here, in this sleepy rural village, the night is absolute. When the sun dips below the horizon, and the last fading glow of the twilight is swallowed by the turning earth, the darkness that descends is total and uncompromising. There are no lamps lighting the dirt paths. There are no signs glowing in the distance. There is only the vast, deep, heavy, velvety blackness of the natural world. It is a darkness so thick, so complete, that it feels almost like a physical substance, a heavy woolen blanket draped gently over the entire landscape. As you look at the small window, you can almost feel the weight of that true, ancient darkness pressing softly against the thick glass. It is not a frightening darkness. It is a protective, insulating darkness. It seals the village away from the rest of the vast, unknown world. It enforces a strict, unbreakable boundary upon human activity. You cannot work in the fields in this darkness. You cannot travel the winding, rutted roads in this darkness. The absolute night commands that all labour must cease. It demands that you retreat to your sanctuary, that you close your doors, build your fires, and rest. The contrast between the heavy black night pressing against the window pane and the deep, radiant amber warmth inside the bakery makes the room feel impossibly safe. The thick stone walls act as an impenetrable fortress against the cold and the dark. You are inside, you are warm, you are sheltered. The vast, sleeping world outside cannot reach you here. I look at the baker, sitting so peacefully in the dim, settling warmth, and I am struck by a deep, quiet realization. It is a thought that I want to share with you, my friend, as you lie there in your own comfortable darkness, preparing to cross over into sleep. We spend so much of our modern lives fighting against the natural cycles of our own bodies. We are told, in 1,000 different ways, that we must constantly be moving, constantly be burning, constantly be producing. We treat our energy as if it is an infinite resource, an endless, roaring fire that should never be allowed to dim. When we feel ourselves growing tired, when our inner embers begin to cool, we panic. We throw more wood on the fire, we drink caffeine, we stare at bright screens, forcing ourselves to stay awake, forcing the flames to leap higher, ignoring the deep, quiet pleading of our own exhausted bodies. But look at the great stone hearth in this room. Look at how the master baker treats the source of his livelihood. The fire in that oven is powerful. Today, it burned with an incredible, fierce intensity. It consumed heavy logs of oak and ash. It radiated enough heat to transform hundreds of pounds of raw, wet dough into beautiful, crusty, life-sustaining bread. It fed an entire village. It gave everything it had, burning brightly and generously. But it cannot burn like that forever. It is not meant to. If the baker had left the door of the oven wide open, if he had let the draft pull the air over the coals all night long, forcing them to continue burning brightly without adding new wood, the fire would have completely consumed itself. By morning, there would be nothing left but cold, grey, lifeless ash. The heart of the oven would be dead, and the village would go hungry. Instead, he did something beautiful. He performed an act of profound care. He gathered the remaining embers together, bringing them close so they could share their fading heat. And then he deliberately buried them. He covered them with ash. He intentionally smothered the bright, dancing light. He put the fire to sleep. The ash is not the enemy of the fire. The ash is its blanket. The ash protects the glowing red coals from the cold drafts of the room. It insulates them, trapping their essential heat deep inside, allowing them to rest quietly, safely, through the long, dark hours of the night. By banking the fire, by forcing it to dim and slow down, the baker is ensuring that its core remains alive. He is preserving its quiet inner warmth, so that tomorrow morning, when the dark sky begins to turn grey, he can gently pull back the ash, blow softly upon the red coals, and bring the fire roaring back to life. You, my friend, are no different from this beautiful, ancient hearth. You have burned brightly today. You have given your energy, your focus, and your care to the world around you. You have carried your burdens, completed your tasks, and provided for yourself and those you love. You have done enough. You have been enough. But you cannot burn forever. The day is over. The night has fallen, and the absolute, protective darkness is pressing gently against your own windows, commanding you to cease your labour. It is time for you to bank your own fires. It is time to stop throwing wood onto the flames of your waking mind. You do not need to figure anything out right now. You do not need to plan for tomorrow or worry about yesterday. The time for bright, active thought has passed. Right now, your only purpose is to gather your remaining energy, pull it deep inside yourself and cover it with the soft, heavy, grey ash of sleep. You must let your mind dim. You must allow your thoughts to slow down, to break apart, to lose their sharp edges and fade into a soft, formless, amber glow. There is a profound, timeless comfort in this realization. You are not a machine designed to run endlessly. You are a living, breathing part of the natural world, bound to the same beautiful, cyclical rhythm as the earth, the sun, and the fire. There is a time for the flames to leap, and there is a time for the embers to sleep. Embrace the ash. Welcome the dimming of the light. Let the heavy, insulating blanket of rest fall over your mind. Know that by letting go, by surrendering completely to the darkness and the quiet, you are not giving up. You are preserving your warmth. You are protecting your inner light. You are doing the vital, necessary work of resting, so that when the dawn inevitably comes, you will have the strength to burn brightly once again. The bakery is so very quiet now. The ticking of the cooling bricks has grown slower, fainter, with long, beautiful stretches of absolute silence stretching out between each tiny sound. The baker remains seated on his three-legged stool, his head bowed slightly, his breathing perfectly deep and perfectly even. He is already half asleep, resting in the safe, familiar embrace of the stone walls he knows so well. The air is thick with the smell of toasted flour and old wood, a heavy, narcotic perfume that tells every muscle in your body to completely let go. The 16th century night holds the building in its dark, quiet hands, keeping it safe, keeping it hidden, ensuring that nothing will disturb the profound, hard-earned peace of this forgotten room. For a very long time, the master baker does not move. He remains anchored to the low, three-legged stool, existing entirely in the beautiful, liminal space between the heavy labour of the waking hours and the deep, restorative oblivion of sleep. He lets the thick, fragrant air of the bakery wash over him, feeling the ambient, radiant heat of the great brick oven sinking deeply into the heavy wool of his tunic, warming his skin, softening his tired muscles. He is a man who understands patience. He knows that true rest cannot be rushed. It must be invited. It must be allowed to settle over the body slowly, like the fine grey ash settling over the glowing coals. Eventually, as the deep silence of the room stretches out, broken only by the faint, irregular, metallic ticking of the cooling oven hinges, his body tells him that it is time. The transition is complete. The day is fully, irrevocably finished. He opens his eyes, though the room is so thoroughly draped in heavy, velvet shadows that the difference between his eyes being open and closed is only a matter of soft, amber textures. He places his large, flower-dusted hands firmly upon his knees. With a slow, deliberate exhalation, he leans his weight forward and pushes himself up from the low seat. The thick joints of the wooden stool emit a final, soft creak as the weight is lifted from them. He stands tall in the center of the dark room, his silhouette illuminated faintly from behind by the dying glow of the banked hearth. He takes a moment to stretch, a slow, natural extension of his spine, rolling his heavy shoulders backward, working out the last, stubborn knots of tension that have resided there since the early morning hours. He does not turn to leave immediately. Instead, he turns to face the great stone archway of the oven one final time. He looks at the mound of pale grey ash resting in the center of the deep black cavern. Beneath that soft, insulating blanket, he knows the cherry-red heart of the fire is beating slowly, safely, holding on to its vital heat. There is a profound, unspoken trust between the baker and the hearth. He has cared for the fire, and in return, the fire will wait for him. It will not fail. It will sleep just as he is about to sleep, and it will be ready to begin the cycle anew when the dark sky finally turns to grey. Satisfied that the room is perfectly secure, he turns away from the heat and begins to walk toward the back of the building. His footsteps are slow, heavy, and completely unhurried, the soft leather of his shoes making a muted, rhythmic scuffing sound against the smooth, uneven flagstones. He walks past the massive oak work table, now wiped entirely clean and resting in the shadows. He walks past the tall wooden peels, leaning silently in their dark corner. He moves through the space with the effortless navigation of a man who could walk this path entirely blindfolded, guided only by the familiar textures of the floor and the subtle shifts in the air. At the very back of the bakery, set into the thick stone wall, is a narrow, heavy timber door. It is the threshold that separates the workspace from his small, private living quarters. He reaches out, his hand finding the cool iron of the latch. He presses his thumb down, and the latch lifts with a dull, heavy click. He pushes the door open. The iron hinges, forged thick and strong, to carry the weight of the solid oak, groan softly, a low, drawn-out sound of ancient friction that speaks of safety and seclusion. As he steps through the doorway, the atmosphere shifts beautifully. The living quarters are built right against the back of the great stone oven, meaning that the massive wall of the bedroom is effectively a giant slow-release radiator. The air in this small room is incredibly warm, but it lacks the dusty, flour-filled dryness of the bakery. Instead, it smells of clean, ancient timber, of dried lavender hanging in small bunches near the window, and of the faint, lingering scent of old, rendered tallow. He pulls the heavy door shut behind him. The latch falls into place with a definitive, satisfying thud. The bakery, with its tools and its vast, empty table, is now sealed away. The day's work is officially locked on the other side of that thick wood. The small bedroom is illuminated by a single, solitary light. Resting on a small, scarred wooden table, near the bed is a short, thick tallow candle, sitting heavily in a simple iron holder. It has been burning for a little while, left there to guide him when the work was done. The flame is small, but in the confined space of the windowless back room, it casts a beautiful, rich, golden halo of light. The light flickers gently, sending slow, lazy shadows climbing up the whitewashed plaster walls and dancing across the low, beamed ceiling. It is an intimate, fragile light, a tiny beacon of warmth in the vast ocean of the 16th century night. The baker steps into the golden halo of the candle. He reaches up behind his neck, his thick fingers finding the knot of his heavy linen apron. He unties it with a single, practiced pull. He pulls the loop over his head and lets the apron fall away from his body. The sudden release of the thick fabric is a physical unburdening. He folds the apron carefully, deliberately, smoothing out the flour-dusted creases with his hands, and lays it neatly over the back of a simple wooden chair. The uniform of his trade has been shed. He is no longer the master baker. He is simply a man weary and ready for rest. He walks over to the edge of the bed and sits down. The mattress, stuffed thickly with dried straw and soft goose feathers, yields immediately under his weight, rustling with a soft, dry, comforting sound. He reaches down to his feet. He unties the thick leather bindings of his work shoes, the stiff laces sliding through his fingers with a gentle friction. He pulls the heel of the left shoe off, letting it drop softly to the wooden floorboards. He repeats the motion with the right shoe. The relief in his feet is instantaneous and profound. He wiggles his toes inside his thick, coarse woolen socks, feeling the cool, polished grain of the floorboards beneath him. The heavy, protective layers of his daily life are being stripped away, leaving only comfort, softness, and ease. He stands up from the bed, his feet making no sound at all in the soft wool socks. He steps back over to the small wooden table. He looks down at the solitary tallow candle. The wax has melted into a small, perfect, golden pool at the top of the candle, reflecting the tiny, tear-shaped flame. The wick is curled slightly, glowing a brilliant, fierce red at its core, surrounded by a halo of blue, yellow, and pure white light. For a moment he just watches it burn, admiring the simple, beautiful, temporary nature of the little fire. It has served its purpose. It has lit his way to his rest. He leans down, bringing his face close to the flame. The warm, golden light illuminates the deep, weathered lines of his face, the absolute calm in his eyes. He takes a slow, shallow breath in through his nose, drawing in the sweet, slightly greasy scent of the melting tallow. And then he gently purses his lips and releases a small, soft, sudden puff of air. Instantly, the bright golden teardrop of light vanishes. The room is plunged into an absolute, total, uncompromising darkness. The sudden absence of light is not a shock. It is a heavy, falling curtain of pure relief. For a few seconds, the wick of the extinguished candle continues to glow, a tiny, fading pinpoint of cherry-red light in the blackness, mirroring the massive embers sleeping next door. A thin, delicate wisp of pale grey smoke curls upward from the dying wick, twisting and spiralling invisibly into the dark air. The smell of the extinguished candle, a nostalgic, smoky, burnt cotton aroma, blooms gently into the room, a scent that signals to the deepest, oldest parts of the human brain that the day is truly, finally over. The red dot of the wick slowly fades, dims, and then disappears entirely. The darkness is now perfect. It is a heavy, velvety, insulating blackness that wraps around the baker like a physical garment. He does not need to see. He knows this room by heart, by touch, by the very feeling of the air. He turns away from the table, his hand reaching out in the dark to find the smooth, rounded wood of the tall bedpost. He uses it to guide himself. He steps to the side of the bed, feeling the edge of the mattress against his knees. Slowly, carefully, he climbs into the bed. The mattress of straw and feathers groans softly, a deep, settling sound as it accepts the full, heavy weight of his body. It contours perfectly to his shape, rising up to support his tired back, his aching shoulders, his heavy legs. He lies back against the thick, linen-covered pillows, sinking deeply into their soft embrace. He reaches down to the foot of the bed and grasps the edge of the blankets. In this cold century, the bedding is made for survival, built for absolute warmth. He takes hold of a massive, incredibly heavy blanket, woven from pure, undyed sheep's wool. The texture is coarse, thick, and wonderfully substantial. As he pulls the blanket up over his body, you can hear the soft, scratchy friction of the heavy fibers rubbing together. The weight of the wool blanket, as it settles over his chest and his legs, is magnificent. It feels like a physical embrace, a grounding, downward pressure that instantly calms the nervous system. The thick wool traps the radiant heat of his body, and the ambient heat coming through the stone wall from the bakery oven, creating a perfect, sealed cocoon of warmth. He pulls the top edge of the heavy blanket all the way up to his chin, tucking the coarse fabric securely around his shoulders, ensuring that not a single draught of cool air can find its way inside. He lies perfectly still in the absolute darkness. His hands rest softly on his stomach, rising and falling with his breath. The village outside is completely silent. There is no wind tonight. There are no distant voices, no barking dogs, no rumbling carts. The entire world has shut down, surrendered to the vast, heavy, protective night. The thick stone walls of the bakery act as an impenetrable fortress, keeping out the cold, keeping out the dark, keeping out the noise. Within this fortress, the baker is perfectly safe. He is warm, he is held. His breathing begins to slow down even further. It deepens, lengthening into a slow, rhythmic, hypnotic tide. Inhale. The chest rises slowly under the heavy wool. Exhale. The body sinks deeper, heavier, softer, into the yielding feathers of the mattress. The rhythmic sound of his breath fills the tiny, dark room, a lullaby of human endurance and earned rest. He lets go of the day entirely. He lets go of the dough he shaped, the fires he built, the faces of the villagers he fed. He lets the thoughts dissolve, breaking apart in the dark, floating away like the tiny, invisible particles of ash in the next room. His mind empties, becoming as vast and dark and quiet as the night sky outside his window. He slips, slowly and beautifully, beneath the surface of consciousness, descending into a deep, dreamless, unbroken sleep. And as he settles into the dark, so too must you, my friend. I want you to feel the transition happening right now, in your own room, in your own bed. The bridge between the 16th century and your present moment is incredibly small. The world outside your window may look different. The walls around you may be made of different materials. But in the dark, underneath your blankets, seeking warmth, seeking safety, seeking rest, you are doing the exact same ancient, beautiful thing that human beings have done for thousands of years. You are entirely connected to the master baker. You share this moment with him. The modern world, with all its flashing lights, its endless notifications, its fast-paced demands, and its complex anxieties, all of it is just a thin, fragile illusion. It is a noisy layer resting on top of a very simple truth. And the truth is this: when the day is done, you are just a person who needs to rest. You are just a body that needs warmth and a mind that needs the quiet. I want you to feel the weight of the blankets resting over you right now. Notice how they press gently against your chest, your stomach, your legs. Imagine that they possess the same heavy, comforting, grounding weight as the baker's thick, woven wool. Feel how they trap your own natural warmth, creating a perfect, safe, enclosed sanctuary just for you. No one can ask anything of you while you are in this sanctuary. This space belongs entirely to you, and it is dedicated solely to your peace. Notice the mattress beneath you. Feel how it rises up to meet your body, contouring perfectly to your shape, supporting every curve, every joint, every heavy bone. You do not need to hold yourself up anymore. You do not need to brace against gravity. You can completely surrender your weight to the bed. Let yourself be heavy. Let yourself sink. Imagine that with every slow exhalation, your body is pressing just a fraction of an inch deeper into the soft, yielding surface beneath you. I want you to do a final, gentle scan of your body, searching for any tiny, lingering fragments of tension that might have hidden themselves away. Bring your awareness to your feet. Feel your toes, the arches of your feet, your heels, your ankles. Let them go completely slack. Feel a warm, heavy sensation of profound relaxation pouring over them, turning them entirely to lead. They are sinking down, heavy and still. Let that heavy, warm relaxation travel slowly up your legs. Feel it moving through your calves, washing over your knees, and settling deeply into the large, powerful muscles of your thighs. Your legs are the pillars that hold you up and carry you through the world all day long. Thank them for their labor, and then give them permission to completely turn off. They feel impossibly heavy, boneless, melting into the mattress. Let the relaxation flow up into your hips, your pelvis, your lower back. Feel the deep, stabilizing muscles of your spine completely unclenching, releasing their grip. Feel the natural, comfortable alignment of your back against the bed. Your stomach is soft, your chest is open and relaxed, rising and falling with an effortless, natural rhythm. You are breathing in perfect harmony with the slow, sleeping heartbeat of the old bakery. Send the heavy, warm feeling up into your shoulders. These are the places where we carry the weight of the world, the stress of our responsibilities, the burdens of our modern days. Let it all slide off you now. Imagine that weight simply liquefying, rolling off your shoulders and dissolving harmlessly into the dark air. Feel your shoulders drop down, away from your ears, sinking flat and heavy against the pillows. Let the relaxation pour down your arms, flowing over your elbows, down your forearms, through your wrists, and all the way out to the very tips of your fingers. Your arms are resting gently by your sides, or folded softly over your stomach. They are entirely devoid of energy, perfectly still, perfectly at peace. Finally, let the warm, softening energy wash up the back of your neck, over your scalp, and down across your face. Release your jaw completely. Let your lips part just a little. Smooth out the muscles of your cheeks. Let the tiny muscles around your eyes surrender their grip. Your eyelids feel incredibly heavy, like thick, velvet curtains drawn securely over the windows of your mind, shutting out the world, keeping you safe inside the quiet dark. You are so very tired, and it is a beautiful, necessary, earned exhaustion. I want you to imagine your mind, your conscious thoughts, as that single, floating speck of pale grey ash swirling gently in the warm, heavy air of the great stone oven. All day long your thoughts have been bright, moving fast, caught in the updrafts of your daily life. But now, the fire has been banked. The air is stilling. The updrafts are gone. You, the tiny, weightless speck of ash, are beginning to drift downward. You are floating on a warm, invisible current of air, descending slowly, gracefully, through the absolute darkness. There is no rush to reach the bottom. The descent itself is a beautiful, peaceful experience. You drift slightly to the left, a gentle, lazy sway. You drift slightly to the right. With every slow, rhythmic breath you take, you drift a little lower. Lower, heavier, deeper. You can feel the ambient, comforting warmth of the massive, sleeping hearth radiating all around you, holding you suspended in a perfect state of peace. You are completely untethered from the world above. You do not have to think. You do not have to plan. You do not have to remember. You only have to drift. Below you is the vast, soft, welcoming mound of the banked embers, covered in their protective blanket of grey ash. It is the place of deep, ancient rest. It is the place where energy is preserved, where the body heals, where the mind is washed clean by the quiet. You are drifting closer and closer to that soft surface. The warmth is wrapping tightly around you now, a thick, heavy, narcotic blanket of comfort. You take one final, slow, deep breath in, filling your chest with the quiet peace of the 16th century night. And as you exhale in a long, slow, complete release, you finally touch down. You settle softly into the ash. You merge with the deep, quiet, pulsing warmth of the banked fire. Your thoughts break apart completely, dissolving into the beautiful, formless dark. There is nothing left to hold on to. There is nothing left to do. The bakery is locked. The stone walls are thick. The night is quiet, and the world is asleep. You are perfectly, entirely safe. Let the darkness take you. Surrender completely to the heavy, pulling tide of rest. It is time to close your eyes, my friend. It is time to let go of this day. Drift away now. Sink down into the warm, heavy quiet. Sleep well. Good night.